Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Cantaloop 3. This is book 3, Against All Odds. Cantaloop is a point-and-click or a point-and-click adventure game as a book. This is the third one in the series, and honestly, I don't know that you should play this unless you played the other two, because it's one story. You don't need to play the other two to understand this, but you won't understand the story. You can still play the game, but you won't understand the story. In the first one, you are the main character, this guy right here, and you are getting a team together because you're going to rob somebody. But hey, your team is in prison and or somewhere else, and you need to get them out. How do you do all that? Well, that's book 1. Book 2, you got to make your plan, get everything together. Then book 3, you now exact the plan, and this is the end of that series. I'm not going to show you too much from this book because I don't want to spoil it, but this book comes with a couple special things in here. This is something that you're going to use, and I don't actually use this because you can mark this off. I just write the numbers down on a separate piece of paper, but basically, sometimes the book will say, hey, check off H1, and then later on they'll say, if H1's checked off, you can do this. This adds one thing to it, which says when you have A7, A8, A9 added to it, if they're all checked off, then you'll read a very specific thing. So this is important. You also have this, which is your map, and it will show you different things. And there's also some sort of weird puzzle in the back, which I'm not going to spoil, but that is a puzzle in the game. There's some tokens, which I punched back into their sheet so that we'll be able to use them later on. But they're used for at least a couple puzzles. And then most importantly, what's in here is an inventory sheet, which seemingly has gotten stuck. Let me pull that out. The quality for the front of this has never been particularly good. And then the most important thing of all, this right here. So as the game goes by, it walks you through, which you don't need to go through this if you played before, but it will show you there's a lot of that text that you can read through. And folks, there is a lot of that text throughout this game. Like here, you need to read all of this as you're going through. Now, what you're going to be doing in this game is you're going to be going to locations. So when you go to a location, so here, for example, is the roof. And you're not allowed to just randomly read stuff on this roof here. What you're going to do is you're going to use item cards that you have. So this is a blackened key, for example. I might try to use that blackened key on this brick. I'll put this here. This top arrow points to R1. This points to E7. I look up R1, E7. It's not there. Nothing happens. If it is there, let's say R1, X3 works, I then will put this here and read what it says. Sometimes it laughs at you. Sometimes it does something stupid. Sometimes it gives you a card that's worthless. Sometimes it gives you a card that's useful. And you can connect every card with every one of these and try all sorts of things. As you go to different locations in the game, sometimes there's just a letter. That means I can just check that thing for sure. But again, I can connect all the different cards that I gain, and there are lots of cards. As you can see here, it goes up to 72 cards. And in fact, you can take cards and you can even try to put them together to see if, hey, well, a blackened key and a brick work together. That's A9V2. Then you have an inventory thing here, so I'll look this up. A9V2, no, there's nothing. But if there is something, again, you can check this. That's it. Occasionally, you'll go to the back of the book where they will have scenes where people will talk back and forth. Sometimes those scenes let you make some decisions. There is a help section in the back. The help section is very, very handy because what it does is you go through whatever mission you're trying to do and you look for the first letter that you have not checked off on the matrix. Once you find that letter that's not checked off, you then go to, it says read 123, you go here and it will give you tip 1, tip 2, or just tell you straight up how to solve it. Like I said, there's other things in the game that will have some usefulness on there, and I'm trying not to show you too many cards and pictures and things of the game, but honestly, everything I showed you just now isn't going to help you at all. There's so much to do in this game, and it's going to take quite a few hours to finish it completely. Now, part 1 I liked a lot. Part 2 I really disliked. They did a lot of problems with part 2. There's a lot of just guessing. Part 3 here is better than part 2, but not as good as part 1. This sounds like a lot of movie trilogies, doesn't it? Now, there's a lot of good things in this game. So at first, it's kind of fun. You're like, ooh, I connect this to this and this and this. You have a few cards, but as time goes by, you have a lot more cards. And there are a few times in this game in particular where you're like, oh, you wanted me to use that item here? That makes no sense. Only in retrospect does it make sense. How was I supposed to guess that? The game starts off with a choose your own adventure thing, which I almost jettisoned at the very beginning, because I went to the first scene. So there's a bunch of scenes, like I said, and in these scenes you talk back and forth to all these different people. And in the very first scene, they were like, do this, do this. What do you think we should do? And I'd be like, we should do this. And they're like, no, that doesn't work. Go back to the beginning. It was like a little choose your own adventure with no real knowledge of what to do. Finally, I just was like, and I started holding my finger and I picked 6, go back to start. No, I picked 8, that sort of thing. But that was only the beginning. The game has a ton of humor. Puns abound in this game. But once it got started, I found the puzzles to be, for the most part, fun. There were a few puzzles that you can solve through brute force or, remember I showed you the wine cellar and stuff? There are some things where you need to look at tons and tons of stuff and compare them. There was one in particular where I did it through brute force. I couldn't figure out how to do it normally. And when I looked at the clue, I was like, that is not the clue I would have used. But I will say, for the most part, it does all come together in a good way, and the ending of the story is a satisfying thing. This does make me think, well, maybe I should just be playing a point-and-click adventure game on the computer, because it's easier to do, or an iPad or whatever. But this does bring it to life. So if you enjoyed the first one, you're going to enjoy this one. The second one is almost universally disliked, but I think this one will bring you back into the fold. Like I said, it does a good job with the story. If you've never played it before, I recommend trying the first Cantaloop. If you like those old point-and-click adventures, whether they're from LucasArts or whatever, you might get a kick out of this, because that's what it is. You're like, I'll try this here. I'll try this with this. Oh, it worked. So a lot of fun. It says on here 9 to 12 hours of fun. You can take breaks. That's definitely true. For me, I think it took 7 hours maybe, but then again, if I get even remotely stuck, I'm like, I can't figure it out. If 5 minutes go by and I can't figure it out, I look at the next hint. So take that into account. But works solo, it says, or you can play with a friend. You could play with more than 2 people, but it is a pretty good solo type activity, which is the way I did it. So anyway, there you go. I give it a 7 out of 10. That's Cantaloop, Volume 3. I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.